We got to throw the shells on a little bit on Saturday, but the first day of full pads and incorporate just a small bit of tackling today in some periods that we felt like we needed to get some live tackles, just a couple there. I think it excites everybody, especially after, about 3 days of rest almost before we get back going, get some legs back and stuff like that. But it's always fun when you're putting the pads on and you can be a little bit more physical, and you just get so much more out of the practice when you get to do that. So, I thought it was a really good day. Excited with where we're tracking after the first 4.
It seems that the high school coaches and players coming to practice is picking up, and does that add excitement on the sidelines for you guys?
Yeah, I think so. One thing about me that I'm a huge believer in, we talk about all the time, is like the family environment that we have here. So there's a lot of recruits here, a lot of high school coaches, but there's also a lot of family members that just come and watch their brother, their son, whatever the case may be. And so I just think, when you add that element, everybody wants to maybe practice a little bit more, show off for their people and some of that. And it almost gives you a crowd, if you will, to play out in front of. So, we've had a tremendous amount of support here at practice, and I think that's just going to continue to grow.
Last one for me is today was pro day. Just a comment on how special that day is. Some of the guys trying to put together a resume for what they hope will be their next job.
Yeah, pro day is huge every year. Extremely excited for our group of guys we got going. I believe it's 13 or 14 guys, something right around there that's going. And the fun part for me is especially, everybody kind of goes and they train where they train, and some are training local and some are training far away. And just these last few days, you've been able to see some guys trickle back in the building that were here last year. And so, like Alex Cabbage came and hung out with me in my office for about 45 minutes yesterday. And so just seeing old faces and guys that I love to death and always will. Excited I'm going to try to pop over there real quick to see if they're still going any right now. We're done here. Excited to see how those guys did, and I'm sure they had a great day.
Coach, do you have any update on, well, first of all, can you comment on what's going on with Easton? And if not, that's fine. But how is his progression towards a return?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think he probably could have played it today, to be honest. But man, he's played a lot of college football. We know exactly what we're getting out of him. And it's something that I don't want to linger. And so I'm being extremely cautious with him. He did some stuff with us early, some walkthrough type tempo stuff. Again, we'll see. I don't know if I'll put him back out there Thursday or not. I truly believe he's ready to go. And if not, I think it's gonna be hard to probably keep him off the field by Saturday. He's chomping at the bit to get back. He wants to take some strain off his teammates and some stuff like that. So he's totally fine. He's just got like some tight hamstring type stuff. And then again, the last thing I want is to pop that thing and then have him out for the next 6 to 8 weeks.
And then a follow up on Caden. Last week you had indicated you thought possibly around the 3rd week of camp that he may begin to likely toss. Is that still kind of where we're heading with him, or?
Yeah, we'll see. I think definitely at the worst, that very last week of spring ball leading into the spring game, I think he's gonna, as far as we're tracking, for sure be able to go that week. And again, I'm gonna limit him. I'm gonna be super smart with what he gets to do. But hopefully that second to last week as well, for sure we're getting him in. You know what I mean? And we'll see what that looks like. He's going through his throwing progression as we're walking off the field now. And he feels really strong. The zip's kind of starting to come back. And when you don't throw a football for over 3 months, that you lose a little bit of velocity on it.
Yeah.
And I know that's frustrating. But he was the same way. He came to me yesterday after he did yesterday's throwing progression. He's like, man, I'm starting to feel it again. And so he feels good. If he sat right here, he'd probably tell you, I don't know why they're holding me out. I can go. I think that's the vibe he's got. But at the end of the day, he's just like Easton. I know exactly what I'm getting out of him. And so the ultimate key is making sure he's 1,000% healthy before we rush him back in anything.
Coach, with Kamari Johnson and Leon Hart not able to practice this spring coming off the surgery, some other linebackers are getting a chance to get some reps. How have that group responded so far?
Yeah, it's been awesome. We brought in a couple transfer guys, and Joseph and Nate Fisher, and those 2 guys are doing a really good job. Again, they're new, they're learning, but both of those guys I think are going to help us a lot. And then you got a couple guys that have been around. Hector Chavez, man, he made some big time plays today. He's had a few really special plays, punching the ball out, causing some fumbles and some stuff like that last week. Quez is getting better every day too. Played a ton of special teams for us last year. We're hoping he can have a little bit more of a role. You got Zaire Horton coming back. So we've got a stable of guys in that room. But it's just good. We're able to push a lot of reps to a lot of different people with those 2 being out. And, of course, you never want those two kind of linebackers out, right? They were huge contributors for us last year, but at the end of the day, you know, whenever you got guys that are seasoned vets that have played a lot of football, let's get those guys back healthy and let's get these other guys going a little bit so we can see what we have, you know, as a whole linebacker room here we roll through August.
Okay.
No, I was thinking Frank had another one. I didn't want to dominate. Quarterback competition, number 2. Are you starting over? Are you still settled with Jordan, or is it too early?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely too early. I mean, I can say this, Jordan Magwood's gotten all the reps with the one so far. Again, just continuity in the offense, you know what I mean? He knows what he's doing, he can operate the best. Drew is really coming along, our transfer from Rice. He's got a rocket arm, but man, he hasn't played a lot of football in his career when you look at his trajectory. And, you know, his first year he was in a pro-style offense there in Rice, and last year they bring the triple option in, which is totally not his game. So it's almost like, I'm not saying he did it, he took a whole year off, but it's kind of like he took a whole year off, because you talk about night and day total different offenses compared to, you know, what Coach Abel and them were doing at Rice and what we're doing here. And so he's really progressing. I'll say I thought day 1 and 2 he struggled a little bit. Again, just me being honest. Saturday was one of his better practices. Today he practiced even better. And so he's trending in the right direction. But yeah, I'd say those two right now. You know, Michael Valentino was here last year, so he's operating the offense well. He's doing a good job. And then our freshman too, Jeremiah. For a freshman, I'm really proud of where he's at right now. But I'd say right now that those two guys we mentioned at the beginning there are kind of battling it out a little bit. But again, full disclosure, Jordan Magwood's been getting all the ones so far.
And Jordan, does he offer you a dual threat? Yeah, so this is kind of an oddball question, but I don't think I've ever seen in your offense like a curveball, knuckleball quarterback set. Herman did it a little bit with MJ Jr., and I think we did it before with Tyreek under Taggart. But would you ever consider anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. Again, it's gotta fit into who you're playing and some of that stuff. You go watch me at Texas Tech in 2022. You know, I had Tyler Shuck as my starting quarterback, and I had a really, really talented athlete in Donovan Smith that was a backup quarterback for us that year too. And if you go watch us against Oklahoma, I think Donovan Smith, with both those guys on the field together, I know he caught a touchdown, and I know he ran one in too. So we were just the one short there of throwing one as well for him. But I like to dabble in it a little bit if I feel like it gives me an advantage in a certain way. But again, we'll see what that looks like this fall.
The biggest thing with this group is I just love the competitive spirit that we have. All right, the guys, they all come with a tremendous amount of experience too. You know, I think between AJ, Brooks, and Marcus, they've played a total of 2,000 snaps. You know, so they already kind of know the deal. They, you know, can make things work. They do a good job, and they understand what's going on and what it takes out there. You know, so that's over half the battle. But the biggest thing is I just love the competitive spirit these guys bring every single day. You know, it's intrinsic motivation. You know, I don't necessarily have to spend a lot of time bringing it out of them. You know, because they're intrinsically motivated and they truly want to do it themselves. So, you know, that's been great to see every single day.
Last year, Mike Kirch had some productivity, but his eligibility's done. In the off season, did you go to coach and say, hey, we need to restock the room, or was it a group think kind of thing, like this is a room we've got to target in the portal?
You know, I think me and Coach Kittley had a conversation, and you know, it was more so where do we want to go in the direction with this tight end room. You know, I think that it's all about what fits, right? You know, Coach. The one thing I love about Coach Kittley as a play caller, he truly does cater to his personnel. You know, the guys that he has out there. If he's really good in 10, he's going to play 10 personnel. If he's really good in 11, he's going to play 11, and so on and so forth with 12. And he's proven that before. So we kind of, you know, wanted to restock the whole room in that aspect of, okay, let's go and find guys that we know can excel in multiple different areas, right? That are more of a fit for what we have going on as an air raid offense here. And that's kind of what me and Coach Kittley talked about this past offseason. And, you know, it was just a plan of attack, right? Who do we see being a part of this? How do we picture them in this offense, and going from there? And we found a couple of guys that can really do it for us.
Do you think, again, being early on, that you have the flexibility to go 11, 12, or even 13 if you needed to?
I believe so, and really because, again, I mentioned these three guys have played over 2,000 snaps. Well, also within that, these guys have played multiple spots already in their respective previous offices. So that's been great to see. You know, I mean, we already got guys that have lined up at the #1 receiver before and everywhere. So I do foresee that happening. We've been doing it a lot in practice. I would anticipate us continuing to do that and adding even more. You know, it's all about what the guys can handle, and I think we'll be able to.
So one of the guys that you brought in, which I asked for today, is AJ. I know he's here, and you'll probably speak highly of him anyway. But what can you tell us about his game? What in particular attracted you from a skill set perspective?
Well, you know, I would say first and foremost, just talking about AJ as a person. AJ is an outstanding human being. That's first and foremost. I think he was raised amazingly by his parents. You know, he's been through a lot of different situations that has shaped him into what he is today. And I think that, you know, with him and his overall being, that makes up a lot of what you see on the field. I think that AJ is a natural born leader. I think he's a natural competitor. And I think he has a lot of context in regards to what it takes to win at a high level too. You know, at his previous institution, Villanova, you know, they've seen the Final Four in the playoffs. You know, he's a guy that's been to playoffs, deep in the playoffs 2 years in a row, and you know, he kind of has that context of what it should look like. And I think when it came to recruiting, okay, as a holistic approach, everybody on staff is always looking for the guys that win, right? The guys that are used to that, and AJ is one of those guys. I mentioned the position flexibility and guys that have already done it. He's the guy that's done it, right? He's the guy that's played in multiple spots in his previous offense, and that was music to my ears because, you know, that's kind of what we need here. And you know, like I said, just the overall competitive spirit, man. Like I love his energy. I love it, and I think that he backs it up. You know, I think that when he may mess up something, I think he's a self-corrector, and you know, he doesn't necessarily get down on himself because he knows that he has another opportunity on the next play, and which that's kind of what you saw today. You know, so that's the thing I love about AJ, and he's going to continue to be good for this offense too, really for this team, his overall leadership qualities. So, you know, again, like to preach on the skill set, you know, he's twitched up, you know, he's strong, he's long, he has a lot of length to him, and he's a really strong guy, you know, and I think that the physicality on top of that is what makes AJ who he is. And then on top of that, you know, when it came to the recruiting thing, he's a Florida kid. And that's important to me, you know, getting guys like himself, you know, that may have been overlooked a little bit in the recruiting process, whatever may have happened. Getting him the opportunity to come back home and play for us last year and come play here at FAU, that was extremely important to me.
Is he going to be a guy that's going to help stretch the field, something that we were kind of, I don't want to say lacking, but yeah, I guess we were.
Yeah.
We had Mike,
yeah,
you know, and that worked for a little while.
Absolutely.
And then we didn't really have much left in the cupboard for the stretching aspect, but he's a guy that you're looking for to haul some catches in, get that aspect of that offense back on track.
Absolutely, yeah. I definitely foresee him being able to do that at a high level, at a big level. You know, the combination of him and Brooks Johnson just being able to do that, as well as Marcus Vincent. You know, I think that we definitely have some different type of juice in that room when it comes to that. Guys that really can stretch the field vertically. You know, right now they're in a phase of, you know, just kind of figuring it out, getting their feet wet a little bit. You know, we give them some stuff here and there. You know, get them excited about the offense, and you know, the future is what I'm most excited about for exactly what you just said. I really truly believe that we'll be able to do that.
Good.